Scouting, without a doubt, is one of the best things to do on Football Manager, and today I'm about to reveal the best scouting methods to find those hidden gems and those wonder kids. My current team on Football Manager is filled with these hidden gems and these wonder kids, which has allowed me to compete at the top with the very best. This is, without question, my most requested video, even more than my tactics. So without the further hold up, let's get scouting. Welcome or welcome back. Thank you for watching, and I know you have pressed that like button already. Before we get stuck into the scouting, there are a few things before you even start your game that you want to check out first. The very first thing you should do is make sure your game setup is perfect, as that will dictate your gameplay. If you don't know how to set up your own game or you want help or a template, don't worry, I got you. Everything in this video down to the player filters, the searches and the game setup will all be downloadable for you in the description box below. In my experience, having a good or high player count doesn't really slow down your game. It's more about the playable leagues. So with this setup, because I know I want to be finding those hidden gems, especially those players in Colombia, in Mexico, I made sure in my player setup that I've got those player loaded. So in the Mexican top division, in the Colombian top division, players that have any sort of reputation in those nations will be available to sign and search in my save. Playable leagues is something you want to be more careful with. The more playable leagues in your game, the slower your game will process. In my experience, having between 1 to 7 playable leagues doesn't really slow down my processing speed, but I do have a pretty decent computer. This game setup though, I do feel is universal, so whether you have a high-end computer or just an okay computer, the game should work absolutely fine. I've got 7 playable leagues here, but as you can see, I've got a lot of other leagues on view only, and that allows me to see the data, which will be very important when it comes to using data to search for hidden gems and wonder kids. A lot of Football Manager players like to scout players for their attributes to be revealed rather than the attributes revealed from the get-go. If that's you, then make sure this box is ticked off. But if you don't have the time to scout and wait for all the attributes to be revealed, then you could just check this box, and then from the get-go, every player's attributes will be revealed from the start. One thing I really dislike about all attributes being revealed is not the fact that all attributes are being revealed, it's the people that say it's the easy way to play the game. I mean, those people say it's the easy way to play the game while signing the best youngsters and using 4-2-3-1 gegenpress. It's a good time for me to remind you, play the game as you enjoy it. It's your game, it's a single player save. Don't let anyone tell you anything else. So now we've got that out of the way, you've started your new game, you selected your team. Now make sure you go to detail level. Go to this FM button and then go to detail level. Make sure you have details on the leagues that you are sure you want to scout in. For an example, in Mexico, the top tier isn't a playable league in my game, but I know I'm going to scout Mexico at some point. So for the Liga MX, for the under 18s and the under 23s, I'm getting all the full match details as if it was a playable league, as if I was in those leagues. The game will be simulating those games in the background properly, making sure that you get the correct data when you do your data search. Again, it's something that you want to be careful. The more leagues you load, of course, the slower the processing will be in the background. Now, this is going to be important later on in the save for internationals, especially the youth international tournaments. Make sure that you have the main stages loaded. The last thing you might want to do now is grab yourself a skin. I use SAS, I also use WTCS. You've also got Statman here, so now if you're doing a data only save, Statman, but also Master Man Iconic is an absolutely fantastic skin to use. But generally, I do use SAS or I do use WTCS, whatever I'm feeling at the time. I know you guys have already pressed that like button, but I can't stress how important your support is. If you have a minute or two today, then please check out the Patreon. It is the best way to support myself and the channel. Let's get back to scouting. Having scouts is important, but not more important than having good scouts. Given I'm in the Eredivisie, a good league, but also a very good Champions League side, when it comes to the attributes of my scouts, I wouldn't be looking for less than 14, judging player potential and judging player ability. But also important is the knowledge. I wouldn't necessarily keep signing Brazilian who only have knowledge of the Brazilian nation. No, I will look for a scout like this one who has extensive in multiple different nations. Me, in my saves, I like regions to be covered, so I either get a scout who has extensive knowledge in a lot of regions, or I will just find one, a Brazilian scout, an Argentinian scout, a Chilean scout. You get the vibe. I like for different nations and different regions to be covered. The recruitment focus method is something that a lot of Football Manager players will be familiar with, but I am going to go through my ways of doing it to find these hidden gems and Wonderkids. Earlier, I said that I want my scouting range to be covered, and this is one reason why. The recruitment focus in your game, you can use it to scout competitions, nations, or even regions. So for an example here, I've chosen an area, I've gone to region, South America, South. And what I'm doing here is looking for a youth player. So for minimum current ability, I've got it at 5 grey stars. I believe it starts at 1 star or half a star at the start, but I do like to reduce it to 5 grey stars. And then for minimum potential ability, I've got 2.5 stars. If you start too high, there is a possibility that you do miss out on some hidden gems, because your scouts also need time to get full knowledge on the player. Sometimes he just gets a little bit of knowledge and makes a, let's say he says 2.5 stars at just some minimum knowledge. But as he gains full knowledge, those stars can increase. So I will start out at 2.5 stars or even 2. Ages between 15 and 19, areas South America South, as we've touched on already. Priority, I like it ongoing. So as the season is going, they just continue scouting. They don't really have a deadline. And then for assigned scout, I've smartly chosen a scout who has good knowledge, not only in just Argentina, but also in the South America South region. There are other reasons other than finding hidden gems and Wonderkids to use the recruitment focus. If you're strapped for cash, if you don't have a lot, you can simply look for a free transfer. Again, set these stars as you want. For free transfer, I am looking for a sort of average player within my squad. And then for further details, which is going to be the most important part, is look for contract status and then use unattached. You can use expired as well. And then free transfers will pop up in your game as you go along. Or one of my favorites, contract expiring. The same method, but this time we are looking for contract status expiring within 6 months. Here, you can approach players on the free transfer. So I can see here a very nice player, Sukic, who I can just go to approach the sign, and voila, I could just talk to him. Yeah, regular starter, suggest promise, and there we are. No transfer fee needed, and I can get Sukic on the free before anybody else. Searching for Wonderkids has to be one of everyone's favorite things to do on Football Manager, and here is a very effective way to do exactly that. If you look down at the bottom left, I've bookmarked my favorite youth competitions. So to do this, you can be in a competition like this, press Ctrl D, and then you can bookmark a page. You can name it or just leave it. I put 1 there, and then you can see 1 is now there. And what we're doing here is just looking at the standout players from these tournaments. A tournament I've been following is the Under-21 Championship qualifiers. To find the standout players, simply just use player stats, and here you can see the best players through average rating, the top goal scorers, the players with the most or the highest expected goals, most assists, the most dribbles per 90. And what you should do, unfortunately in Football Manager at the moment, you can't simply just highlight all these players and right click and then add them to the shortlist. But what I do is simply just right click all of these players, add to a shortlist. So actually you might want to go to your shortlist, create a new one, and we could just do, I don't know, to scout. And from here, what I will do is add these players one by one to my to scout shortlist. It might seem a bit time consuming, but once you get the hang of it, I mean, it is fairly quick just to add these players onto your shortlist. If you've got a bit more time on your hands, then you can actually get a slight preview of these. Oh wow, hovering over these players might give you an early indication if you're going to like that player or not. But what I like to do is just add a lot of them into my shortlist, go to my shortlist, and now what I could do here is just simply select all of these players, right click, and then I could just now scout them all at the same time. And you could do this for all the youth competitions that are currently running. For the Under-19 Championship qualifiers, again, I could just go to the player overview, and here I will have the standout players, the top goal scorers, the highest average rated players as well. And all I've got to do, a lot of these players won't have a lot of knowledge on them, so you will need to add a lot of this to a shortlist. And then, like I said, you can select them all and then scout all at once. And sometimes you might get some luck. So there's this player here, Sergio Ortega, who is contracted at Real Madrid, but I can see that he's got a little youth contract icon. That means if I right click the player, I can now approach to sign. It might not be very difficult for me to get this player on a free-ish transfer. There might be some compensation that I may have to pay, but it can be an easy way to sign this young player. Lastly, for the international Wonderkids, another method that is simple but effective. Add condition, go to international youth appearances. Let's say we add around 30, because 30 can be a lot, and then you could just find players that have a lot of youth appearances. A lot of the time, a player with a lot of youth appearances clearly has some potential. And maybe you want to be mindful of the nations that you're looking at. I mean, a young player that has a lot of youth appearances for Portugal likely has a very decent potential ability. Using that simple but effective method, you can find a defender like Kevin Anziani, who played 31 under-21 games for France, or a player, another defender, like Mattia Monticelli, who played 31 under-21 games for Italy. Both of them absolute central defender monsters. Data. This is something that I get asked about most. How do I find players using data? Using data to find players is one of my favorite things, because you find those hidden gems, players that you may not have necessarily signed if you just focused on their attributes. Prislav Borokov is very interesting because I made a scouting video last year, and about data, we found this guy. And then this year on this save, without even knowing, I signed him again, but it's because of the data that he was getting. We started the save off with a striker called Tobias Laritsen. He was absolutely amazing for us. In the first season, scored 12, but then he scored 34, then he scored 24, 24, 27, constantly scoring over 20 goals. And I thought, why? How is this guy scoring so many goals? His attributes aren't amazing. Then I started looking at his data, and then I started searching players with similar data to him. Now just take a picture in your head of his player profile, his attributes. Now look at Prislav Borokov. They look so similar, it's unreal, but we found him through data. If you don't know how to search through data or what to look for when searching through data, don't worry, I got you. These player searches will be in the download folder. If you are looking for a goal scoring striker, then these are some of the stats that I feel is very important. The reason why I know these numbers are good is because I also check the average in my league. It's something that you can do too. So for an example, how do I know that shots on target per 90 at 1 is a good number? What you can do is simply go to your data hub, go to players, go to forwards, then we look for the shots on target per 90 metric. The average in my league is just below 1.06. So let's just say around 1. That's how I know that shots on target 1 is around the average, not necessarily good, but the average in my league. That's the starting point. And then I can start to increase that number in my player search. So the numbers here, I have carefully selected them. So conversion rate, it is carefully selected at 20%. If you feel there aren't enough players in your search, then you can start to just knock back some of these numbers, or if there's too many players in your search, you could just slightly increase. I believe around 23% is an elite number, I believe. And then what you will see here are some very good strikers. I have also set an age limit as well. That's just my preference. Again, this is something that you will need to look at and tweak, but you can get players like Evan Ferguson pop up on the screen. There's Endrick, but at the very beginning, I told you that I knew I was going to be scouting the Mexican League, and I find a 21-year-old playing in the Mexican League at Atlas who scored 26 goals in 36 games. If I hover over his attributes, I mean, come on, look at his finishing, decent off the ball. It looks like very good composure. It looks like determination. His physical attributes in terms of moving and agility, he looks like a very good goal scoring striker. Felix Rios is someone that I would now either add to my scouting list, or I'll just scout from that list right there. So if you do want to tweak this to find a Wonderkid striker, you can change the age. You would notice that I'm also looking for starting appearances. Very important to note that we are at the end of the season, so I am looking for someone that has been starting games. Again, you can drop this. A 19-year-old possibly ain't going to be starting a lot of games. I can drop this to 10, or you can drop it to a more specific numbers, but I would say around 10. And here I see a Wonderkid at the top of my list. He plays for Tottenham, so I probably won't sign, but looking at his attributes, he's a very good player. In this folder, there are a few different things. So you've got different positions and player roles, but you also got things like cheap players search as well. So if you're looking for a player on the cheap, here you have a few options. You can search by minimum release clause. How much money do you have? I don't have a lot of money, I'm in minus, but let's say we set this at 10 million, then all these players here will cost me at most £10 million. But I've also made it that you can search for unhappy players. Unhappy players sometimes can be easier to sign. Teams may be willing to let go of that player who is currently unhappy. Or maybe you don't want any negative personalities in your squad. Again, don't worry, I got you. I've got a player search looking for positive personalities only. Personally, I like positive personalities. If you was there in my streams, you would have known how important this is for me. You can see as well, I've clearly been searching for players who have positive personalities only. And lastly, with the data method, I am going to show you an example of searching for a creative central midfielder. So what I'm looking here is for someone that can play key passes, don't lose the ball as well. So possession lost per 90 is actually at most 15. Looking for someone that dribbles as well and makes progressive passes. The reason why I've added some of these things, I was sort of using player roles. So looking at the creative player roles, Roman playmaker, advanced playmaker, what is important about these are players that can clearly take risk and create chances for the team. Advanced playmaker on attack, possibly Roman playmaker as well. You are going to be looking at someone that can progress the ball and dribble with it. That's what I did. Now to filter my player search, as in your game it could be all over the place. When you sort it out by division, you tend to get the higher rep divisions at the top of your list, and then again you could just start hovering over players. Here is Diego Rosto, who looks very good. We got Jose Manuel as well. Passing doesn't look great, but he's got very good technique, very good vision, which is possibly a reason that he is getting a lot of key passes. This is the player that I want to stop and show you. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he is an ex-player of ours. Media description, a world-class player. Now we found him through data and we managed to get him on the cheap. We signed him for 3.5 million and then we managed to sell him just 2 years later for 28.5 million. We made some lovely profit on him and we use data. We can use data to find his hidden gems on the cheap and then sell for big profits. And again, adding these players to a shortlist is going to be very important. So just highlight the players, add to shortlist, to scout. Now, when I go to my shortlist to scout, I can just simply highlight all of these players and then report. But sometimes I like to go through this list one more time before sending my scouts out there. For an example, I can see a 23-year-old here. Now, given he's 23, he's got to be pretty good and someone that can start for me right away. He's not, so what I will do is just simply remove that player from the shortlist. And don't worry if your player shortlist isn't looking like mine with all these numbers. Again, that will be in the download folder. And of course, the last thing to note, if you are wowed by data, make sure you do check the division that player is playing in. For an example, I've just looked at the central midfielders, but the player that scored the most goals, this player has scored 11 goals. Automatically, you might think, wow. But then look at the team and look at the league he plays for. It's very unlikely he can replicate that success in a very good league such as the Eredivisie. But there's also going to be some leagues that make you think, this player might be able to make that jump from the Championship to the Eredivisie or from the Serbian league to the Eredivisie. Again, one of the wonderful things about using data to find players. The last method is something that I call the cheat method. Now, you possibly can skip so many steps by simply just doing this one thing. So when players search to find a wonder kid, not necessarily labeled as a wonder kid in the game, you can simply find all the best young players from certain nations just using world reputation. I've set it as okay, starting appearances. Again, I pull it as 10. That's just a preference. And then the age is important to find those youth players. Make sure it's a young age at 20. Now, what you get here is the youth players that already have high reputation in that nation. So for an example, you have the Argentinian Nicolas Lescano. If I hover over him, wow. Just wow. You can also see the teams that want him as well. Aston Villa and Newcastle, Premier League teams. This player already has a good reputation starting out at a young age. A lot of us might see a Brazilian youth player with high reputation and you're like, oh, hello. Again, if you hover over these players, surely these wow. These players are going to be fairly good. Pedro Rossi, and you can see that we already have one, Charles, a right back. This player search isn't going to give you all of the best wonder kids, of course not. In Belgium, there's going to be young players that don't quite have that reputation right now, but still have a potential ability to be an elite player. It just happens that they don't have that reputation right now. So the other methods are still very effective in finding that hidden gem. But if you don't want to find that hidden gem and you just want to find that wonder kid right now that everybody is talking about, go to player search and simply search by world reputation. There's also an underrated and undervalued method, a method that I've used quite often as well. Sometimes I get lazy. I see this player and think, oh, he's pretty good, but I also wonder if his agent has any other clients that look just like him. I simply just go to the agent, sort it out by age, and I can see, look, Alexander Schultz, I've got Rogero. And what I will do again is simply just click. Oh, wait. Oh, it's that Bulmer again. So look, we've got pages, we've got Bulmer here. There might be a link between reputation and actually the player's agent. I've just seen that now, so I don't know if it's true. It could be a possibility, but it's funny that we see both of these players here who were also on that player search. The most expensive player on this list is actually a player from Estonia. I wonder if his agent has anyone. I mean, going through this agent, he's got some players with some decent value. There's also a Real Madrid player here, Antonio Caballero. He looks pretty decent. Unlikely we will sign from Real Madrid though. Here's a Malaga player with 3.3 million transfer value. Now you can either fill it out by ages like I just done, or you could do it by transfer value. This agent has a player with a 95 million transfer value, and his name is Asia Padron. And of brilliant player. So you can just use the agent as well. Another method that I use when I get lazy, admittedly, and it can be very effective. So those were the best methods to scout on Football Manager, in my opinion. Those are my methods in Football Manager. The best thing about the game is that you can play it in many different ways. There's going to be another creator telling you, no, this is the best method. But for me, my team is absolutely stacked with these players, and it's all by using those scouted methods. So we've got Nathan Bernardini, my centre back. He's probably an elite player, but he's currently a wonder kid in my game. We've got this South African goalkeeper. I mean, what are the chances of finding a player in South Africa? We've got a player called Gabriel Batistuta as well. We renamed him that, of course, but look at him, an absolute fantastic Argentine striker. We also managed to sign Mo Salah's son as well. Again, using data and those effective method in finding players. We don't actually have many Dutch players because I was having that much fun in finding these hidden gems. And lastly, for my final example, possibly my favorite player in the save, Cheetos. He's named after someone that I actually play FIFA Pro Clubs with, a very good Pro Clubs player, versatile, and I mean, I just named him after him, but someone that we found from Peru, and he only cost us 550k. Currently, his value is at 89 million to 107 million. If we went to sell on this player, the profit that we would make on this guy. That is how I enjoy my Football Manager. That is how I scout in Football Manager. If you have any other questions, don't forget to use the comment section below. But that wraps up today's video. Very enjoyable. This video did take me time to do, not necessarily the recording and editing, but so many people have asked me for months and months to do this video. I've been putting it off because, like I just mentioned, there's so many different ways and I want to kind of explain it clearly. Hopefully this video was clear enough for you to take away, but don't forget, everything is also downloadable for you down below. I'll see you guys soon. Stay safe. God bless. Boop.